Okay, well, welcome everyone to, I guess it's our now third one this year, right? Yeah, third meeting this year. So we're gonna start with just some housekeeping. We have a couple guest speakers and presenters, do a trivia game, and then Greg will talk a little bit about Tableau certifications before we head into networking. So with the housekeeping, as we're getting the group going again and more active, we thought it's a good time to start with creating a mission and vision statements for the group. It'll also help us better plan and new events coming up, coordinate what sort of speakers and topics we want to cover. And so to start it out, we have just a real short survey out there that's open-ended. That we're going to be sharing on the community forum, and then next month plan to get all collect all the responses together, review them, and have a discussion to see what we want to set up as our goals or direction for the group. And then we've also decided that with our prepared content, we're going to increase the frequency to every other meeting. In July, when we were looking ahead, the first Friday being on the 2nd, right before the holiday, we decided it'd be best to go ahead and move our meeting to the 2nd Friday for that month. And we've also put together a Denver Tug calendar that right now is currently on Tableau Public. So it's got the 2 months going, and we'll show the current month and the next month. And the events that are highlighted, if you select them, there's information. You can get a link to the event page. Right now, we just have our Denver Tug meetings that we're differentiating between the live forum and the planned content. We put Tableau Live, that's coming up this month, on here as well. And so if there are other events that are local or virtual you think the group would be interested in, let us know and we'll add them to the calendar.
Oh, and Mary, one thing to add with our meetings, if you want to speak, if you have any topic that you're interested in, please just send it our way. We have the form posted on our community page, and you can also email any of us, me or Greg or Mary, with whatever idea you have. And we're trying to plan our content out a couple of months in advance. So if you have anything that you would like to present, we would love to have you.
Yep, we have started coordinating for July already, getting some speakers set up. So we want to kind of stay ahead of the ball there. Please reach out. Also, if there's any connections, you know, or other people, if you're not yet ready to present, but you have a friend or just any kind of contact, let us know and see if we can't find some time for them. And speaking of that, we have
volunteer a friend.
The volunteer friend.
Yeah.
Have friends do that. So I guess I will stop sharing at the moment. And also, was there an announcement, Greg, with, did that get moved to later? The Veterans Tableau group?
Yeah, I just got a breaking news message that they're not going to make it today, so we'll maybe do that next month.
Okay. All right. Well, then I guess I will pass it off to the first presenter. Is that Nathan?
Take it away, Nathan.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Nathan Settembrini. I am presenting today on design, Tableau plus Figma, and we're going to use the aesthetics of joy as kind of a framework to hit on some best practices around dashboard design. I'll talk more about that here in a second, but screen's coming through, right? Thumbs up.
You're not allowed to do that.
All right.
Just say, I'm so sorry.
Cool. So real quick, someone maybe needs to mute. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm Nathan Settembrini. I'm actually from Jacksonville, Florida. Grew up there, went to Georgia Tech, lived in Atlanta for 18 years, and then COVID hit, and my wife and I, we decided to sell our house and hit the road. And so we knew we wanted to come out west. We've always been intrigued by the Denver area. And so for the last 10 months, we've been living a month at a time in different places. We hit a couple spots on the East Coast, and then we headed west, hit Denver, Salt Lake, Tahoe for a month, which was amazing. Currently off the Oregon coast and working our way back to the Denver area. And we're renting a house in Castle Rock for a year. So, and maybe longer, to be determined. But I work as a consultant at Analytic Vizion, and our mission is to equip and inspire the next generation of data and technology leaders. And so we are analytics consulting firm, but we are also a training ground for future data leaders. And so we have a kind of a 6-year journey that we take consultants on and then launch them back into the marketplace. So kind of a unique model. We started in May of 2019, and we are now about 10 people. We just hired 2 people this past week, which is amazing. But yeah, so I'll be kind of representing AV in the Denver area, but mostly everyone else is in Atlanta. We're an Atlanta local model consulting shop. So, but I'm the one remote. But yeah, so studied engineering at Georgia Tech, went back and did an MBA later. So I really come at Tableau from a business analyst kind of perspective, and used to be more of like a Excel kind of jockey, Excel PowerPoint jockey, and then have found Tableau, I don't know, a number of years ago, and then layered on Alteryx, and it's just been such a game changer for my career. And I've always had a bit of a design eye, but don't really have any formal training in design. Everything kind of picked up along the way. So, but yeah, so kind of thinking about the 3 pillars of Dataviz, which I think in order to be, and I think everyone on this call could probably relate, in order to be good at Dataviz, you need to be strong technically. Like you have to know the tool, you have to be able to create stuff, write calculations, stuff like that. But you have to know what to build, right? And so you need to have an element of business savvy, right? Where you can ask questions and understand, like, what is the insight we're trying to get from this dashboard? I don't want to just create a dashboard for a dashboard's sake, right? No one needs that. It'll become shelfware and immediately. And then you can't make stuff that's too ugly, right? And so there's definitely an element of design to what we do. And so a lot of people, if you come at this from a data science perspective, right, you are maybe extremely strong on the technical side, right? You can write all kinds of crazy algorithms and whatever, right? Maybe you're kind of struggling to figure out, like, oh, the business, or maybe like your dashboards are ugly, right? And so we need to try to grow in each of these 3 areas. And so today's talk is mostly focused on the design side, and we'll talk a little bit about some technical stuff. But yeah, so I'm going to forge ahead, but that's enough about me. But yeah, I've been at Analytic Vizion for just over a year, and yeah, it's been great. So the founder of Analytic Vizion is Nelson Davis, former Tableau Zen master, kind of an OG Zen master, who ran the Slalom Dataviz practice in Atlanta for like 5 or 6 years. He kind of was the first Tableau person at Slalom Atlanta. But anyways, great team, love being there. And unfortunately, they're all checked out for the week, so no one was on the call today, being on East Coast time. But all right, I did want to mention I guess I already hit on this, that we're on this journey. My wife has this blog, and yeah, we spent a month in Castle Rock. We got to live that Denver area lifestyle, that Colorado lifestyle. We started actually in Telluride for a week, which is unreal. We have a Siberian Husky who freaking loves the snow, and is so excited to stay there instead of sweltering Georgia. That's the Airbnb we rented right under the rock, which was sweet. I got to taste some of the delicious things that Denver has to offer. This is probably our favorite place, Root Down. You guys been there? Oh my
I love
gosh.
that place.
That place is freaking awesome. Some of the best gluten-free pizza in my life in Telluride, Blind Dog Pizza. But yeah. So Juno is super pumped, that's for sure. We went up to Breckenridge and it dumped a bajillion pounds of snow on us, and my four-wheel drive car could barely get up the mountain. We have some friends in the area, which is great. So yeah, we're super pumped to be there, and we will be in the area officially Memorial Day weekend. So pumped. All right, so let's get to what what I wanted to share with you guys. So, all right, so there's a book called Joyful by Ingrid Fetto-Lee, where she talks about aesthetics of joy in design. And so basically she wanted to know, why do certain visual aesthetics make us feel a certain way? And so she's a product designer from IDEO. She did a TED talk about this, but my wife actually found this book and said, hey, I think this applies to what you do. And I was like, huh, well, let me take a look. And so basically what she's done is she's codified all of these 10 aesthetics of joy and goes through all kinds of examples and stuff. It's a great book. It's actually a great audiobook as well. But some of these they're all like core design principles that we can use in our dashboards to make them stronger, to make them more engaging, to make them more beautiful. And so today, I'm not going to get through all of these first 5. I'm going to touch on a couple of them. But basically, the idea behind this is, what are the physiological reasons why we respond to certain aesthetics the way we do? And I'll try to hit a couple high points, at least kind of wet your whistle on this book. Really hoping to be able to do a more extensive training on Joyful at some point. Robert Crocker, who's a Dataviz guy, also kind of a nomad, he and I had put together a whole like an hour-long presentation on the first 5. But yeah, we're gonna touch on those here in a second. So let's start with a use case. And I know everyone is tired of COVID and COVID data. So we're not going to focus at all on the data. I just want to give you a sense of a requirement. And this is a dashboard that I built for one of my clients that I can actually share the data because it's non-proprietary data. And so that's why I'm using it for this presentation. But basically so this is the corporate security department at a large tech company that has about 10,000 employees globally and about 30, 40 offices. And they want to know, from a corporate security person's mindset, I want to make sure that my employees are safe. Okay, so let's take all this COVID data that we can scrounge together from different places and map it to our locations and give our employees a tool, a one-stop shop that they can go to for information about COVID stuff. So you can see we're talking cases, restrictions, hospital capacity, testing availability, which this was June of last year. And the kind of the last part of this, if we get to it, we layer in vaccine information. That's more recent addition to the dashboard. But so yeah, that's the business requirement for the case study. So as we think about it, a new project lands on your desk. You have your first meeting with the client, you know, you're facing some kind of a new business challenge. You want to create some sort of a data solution to provide insight to yourself and others, right? You have to start somewhere. And so a lot of us, especially probably on this call, start with Tableau, right? So we connect to some data, we throw together some Vizes, and it's like, cool, we've got a dashboard, yay, right? But if we want to be, let's say it's a client, you don't know their space, or it's someone in your company on the HR side, and you don't know anything about their data, or you don't know anything about how an HR team needs to think about people analytics, right? You have to start somewhere. And so usually what we'll do is, you know, get out a little napkin, start drawing on it, right? So think back of the napkin type design. But so there's this whole continuum of fidelity when you think about creating mock-ups for dashboards. And so it could be back of the napkin. It could be you're in front of the whiteboard. It could be a digital whiteboard like Miro. So that's, I'm actually presenting from Miro right now. Great digital whiteboard tool. But you know, you could create dashboard mockups and background images for your dashboards in Miro. It's just not going to be that pixel perfect fidelity. Next level up would be using a tool like Figma or Canva or Adobe Illustrator. I'm a huge fan of Figma just because it's so easy, and it's also, it aligns so well with what we do in Tableau. That, and you'll see here in a second if you're not familiar with Figma at all. But it's a great way to create medium to high fidelity mockups that can then later be leveraged for you to, you know, you can get rid of all the numbers and charts and graphs and just leave the framework, and then drop your Vizes on top of it, and you're done. So yeah, so that's kind of the continuum, and I'll walk through the process that we went through on this project here in a second. Okay, so we need to create this dashboard. The client actually provided me this sketch on the left-hand side. So, you know, a lot of times we'll work pretty hard to just pull out of people what's in their head. She went ahead and put what was in her head on paper. And I've really only had that happen like 2 or 3 times. But so she sketched this out. She's like, okay, I want the city name up here. I want some KPIs at the top. I want the restrictions in the middle, new cases, and testing. I said, okay, cool. And then we said, okay, well, how do we pick a location? It's like, well, we could have a drop down. It's like, cool. What if we had a map? And so this right-hand side is what we went over in our little whiteboarding session. I didn't have Miro at the time. I was using OneNote with a pen on my little computer screen. And so, you know, I was just trying to dissect, like, okay, what is everything on this mock-up? Where is it coming from? You know, what's the granularity? What's the, you know, what's the splash experience? When you first open it, what do you see, right? So we went through all that. You know, what are the filters? Are there any filters? Is there any interactivity? What do we show in the tooltips? Like all these kind of questions. And then from there, so now we're pretty low fidelity right now, right? I can't be like, okay, I scribbled some stuff on your hand-drawn thing. Do you like it? Can we go? Let's build it. You know, we're not Tableau ready yet. So first we'll talk about Harmony. But I turned over to Figma and started building it. But we'll hit our first design aesthetic, which is Harmony. And so the whole idea here is balance, rhythm, symmetry, repeating geometric patterns. It's the reason why, you know, people with symmetrical faces are beautiful to us. It's like we're hardwired for order and to appreciate things that are ordered and not messy. This one is actually counterbalanced by another one called abundance, which is kind of like the kid in the candy shop, like lots of cool stuff everywhere, which when done well can be beautiful and amazing. But we're going to start with harmony, which is how do we do layouts of our dashboards so that the information is presented in a way that can make sense to the user and it's also visually balanced. And so you can see here this is a good example of visual balance. It works a lot like, you know, physical balance. There's you know, a large opaque block has more visual weight to it than a small opaque block. And color also plays into that. And so how we lay out our dashboards could also depend on the data that's going to be shown. Does it need to be a large, you know, when I show the map, is it going to have like 2 little tiny dots on it, or is it going to be like a bunch of like big dots, in which case that's a lot heavier of a visual that we need to counterbalance with something else. So that's kind of the idea of harmony. And so we turn to our friend Figma and we make our scribbly little design into something that's a little bit more balanced and actually if you look at this, this line is not in the middle. This viz is not technically balanced. You know, you would want to see like maybe rule of thirds kind of thing or quarters. This is like slightly off center, which to the eye, like you look at this and be like, I don't know, something's weird about this. I don't know what it is. And this is what's driving that. I will flip over to Figma and walk through how we create some of these things, but I'm going to, for the sake of this case study, I'm just going to go quickly. Kaylin, how much time do I have left again?
You have about 5 minutes left.
Wow. Okay. We'll go fast. All right. So now we want to add energy, right? So energy is all about color, and vibrant color is a way that we are hardwired to find food, right? So like a bright red strawberry or a bright red piece of steak is way more appetizing than, you know, something that's kind of brown and gross looking. And so there's a lot of stuff kind of in our physiology that's driving this. And so, I mean, we all recognize the value of adding color to things to spruce it up, make it more exciting, more visually stimulating. And so we added some color. We might have gone a little too far. You know, kind of using the client's brand guidelines, selected some colors. And, you know, I think we're still off center with this line, but we've got this vertical line that's kind of dropping here that's a little more in the center. I think we do eventually center it up, but it's looking better. And then we consider freedom. So freedom is the idea of creating, like using negative space to our advantage, adding buffer and margin. And, you know, so Tableau's default, when you drag a viz onto the canvas, is 8. You know, there's kind of an 8-pixel border around the outside and a 4-pixel border around everything else. And that's for the most part, like it's like barely enough, but you could always add more. And a lot of the most beautiful vizzes that you see, you'll notice that there's like inches of border sometimes. And so we wanted to add some freedom to our dashboard. So you'll notice that the icons are much smaller now. There's a little bit more breathing room. Yeah, we are getting there. So this is, you know, we've worked from low fidelity to kind of a medium fidelity to now this is about as high fidelity as get. I can't even really tell is this Tableau or is this Figma? Part of that is because I actually created this chart in Tableau and then pasted it into Figma as a way of having something kind of real to look at. But this is 100% Figma, and the way I know is because of this little drop-down box. So what I'm going to do now is turn off all the elements except for the background images, and I'll show you that in 2 seconds. And then export this as a PNG, and then I'm going to drop that into Tableau, and then I'm going to use the placement of all these elements and build these vizzes one at a time, little charts, and float them on top of this in the right spot, and we'll be done. Meanwhile, we're also building out the data, and so I've got, oh, this is hidden, but how do I unhide that? I don't even know. Oh yeah, frames. Building out the data in Alteryx to pull in from Johns Hopkins and all the other places. But so we're doing that in parallel with this visual design. And so now, let's see. Oh, I skipped ahead. There we go. B1, energy, freedom, B3, final. So now we start building in Tableau. We've got our exact replica that we want to build, and we do it in Tableau, and you can see that side by side they are nearly identical, apart from a few small changes that some were enhancements that we built towards the end, and some are decisions we made around like the size of the texts and font usage, that sort of thing. So we opted to go with Arial just to make it very accessible. And then we also built out this view here where you pick a location and it takes you to the dashboard for this particular item. Then the question was, how do we deploy it? This particular company just switched from the enterprise deployment of Tableau, where they had unlimited users and everyone could access it, to named users on the new subscription model. And so they cut their number of users down. So only about a third or less of the employees have access. So we needed to deploy this on the intranet side. And so how do we do that? Well, we publish it to Tableau Public, and I make it hidden because they don't want other people looking at this. And then we click a location. And super fast performance on Tableau Public. Here we go. And it pops up, good to go. So that's that. And then 10 months later, they come back and they say, hey, we've got vaccines now. That's awesome. How do we incorporate that? And so we went through a whole process to add in a little extra space and then put the data on a little pop-up that comes up. And then we wireframed. So before we wireframed on paper and then edited in OneNote, now we're wireframing kind of medium fidelity stuff right here in Miro. So just adding little boxes and lines and text and icons. And then now the next iteration of the dashboard has vaccines, and it has a little pop-up that tells me about the availability of the vaccines. So do I have a couple minutes just to show Figma and how you would get started with Figma?
If you could do that in like 2 minutes, then we do have a pretty tight schedule today.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, that took longer than I expected. Hopefully this is helpful to you guys. But so Figma is a free web-based tool where you create little shapes, and what's awesome about it is, I'll show you, this is the kind of the 2-second version. You create a frame. I want to tell it that I'm going to make a desktop size frame, and you could set this to be, you can see over here, let's see, it might be microscopic for you guys. Let's see. There we go. Over here in the corner, you can see X, Y. So we can set it to be wherever we want it to be. We can set it to be whatever size you want it to be. And then we can add rectangles inside of this frame like this. And we can add curves to the edges if we want. So if you see some of these dashboards on Tableau Public with the curved edges, they're creating that outside of Tableau typically. And this is one way that you can do that. You can change the color to be whatever color you want it to be. You can change all kinds of stuff about it. And then when you're done, so like I've got this is my background image. You can see over here on the left-hand side, I've got my color palette. This is where I built out these different views. And then all I'm doing is turning off those layers in the front. And then I click on my background frame. And then I export it over here on the right-hand side. I can export it at 2x or 4x. When you're doing development, I would recommend just do a 1x export. And then towards the end, you bring it in at 2 or 4x to not have any sort of pixelation. Export it as a PNG. And then in my dashboard in Tableau, it's just an image that's floating in the very back of my layout. So if I look at my layout here, you can see it's requerying. Hold on. Sorry, Caitlin. Never going to get asked back again. But you can see here, this is just my floating image. And I can get rid of that if I want. But you can see that, this doesn't have as much visual separation, as much balance, as much harmony as this does. This helps us visually segment the data and keep the different stuff where it belongs. So that's about as deep as I can go today in 25 minutes. So apologies for going long, but next time we can dig more into the Tableau side, I guess. Any questions? Do we have time for questions?
We could do questions for like 2 minutes. If not, we can circle back to them at the end.
Yeah, at the end, we're doing the networking. And so yeah, if you have questions, happy to dive in then too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nathan.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Matt, I will pass it over to you now. You should be able to screen share.
Great. Okay. Give me 1 sec and should be ready to go right now. So let me know if that's coming through.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll be quick here. I'll try to zoom through this, pun intended, as fast as possible. But howdy, everybody. My name is Matt Peterson. I'm a senior solution engineer here at Tableau. Actually been here for 6 years. Started on our support team, moved over to our solution engineering / product consulting team about 3 years ago, where I've been ever since. So I've been using Tableau that whole time. And today we're going to talk about what's new. In those 6 years, I'll tell you what, I've seen Tableau come a very long way. And our newest release is just another kind of notch in our belt here, and it's got a lot of great new features. So really quickly, just to give you all a quick agenda, we'll go over some highlights, kind of go product by product, end with some predictive analytics and licensing improvements as well. So let's dive in. Now, there are a few things on the screen, so I'm not even going to dwell on this very much because I only got about 10 minutes. But suffice it to say, we packed quite a few different things into this release. I'm going to go ahead and hit on the highlights, but the Tableau website, if you just Google, Tableau. Tableau new features or new release, it should take you straight to kind of our new release page, and you can explore on your own. But since you got me taking you on a tour, I'm going to go ahead and take y'all through kind of the highlights, right? So we're starting with Tableau Prep, which is where I always like to start, just like your data might start in Tableau Prep, right? So for those of y'all that are using Tableau Prep, a couple new features here A new ability now to output flows to Microsoft Excel, right? Before we were just able to do an extract or maybe a CSV, as well as, but now we can actually do Microsoft Excel as well. And another thing that we added was support for incremental refreshes with Salesforce. So if y'all are using Tableau Prep and cleaning your Salesforce data with that product, now you can actually enable incremental refresh, which is great. It'll give you much more efficient extract refreshes there. And all you have to do is identify the field that you want to iterate off of, and then you'll only refresh those new rows that come in rather than the whole extract, right? So not only saving you time and resources with your extract refreshes or your flow runs, I guess, in this case, but also, transferring less data from Salesforce and maybe sending fewer API calls as well. So next, get some of these effects on here, but we're going to talk about quick LODs. Now, moving into Tableau Desktop, for those of y'all who have ever written a level of detail calculation before, sorry, one second, I've got to get all of this here loaded. So for those of you who've never, or who have written a level of detail calculation before, this is a really cool feature that we have. Essentially, level of detail calculations can be kind of complicated to make sometimes and not super intuitive. What quick LODs give you the ability to do is actually just drag and drop a measure on a dimension and instantly create an LOD calculation. So it's really just click and drag, and then all of a sudden you have, fixed on the dimension that you've dragged, the default aggregation of the field that you just added. So it allows you to then go in, of course, and you can edit it and make changes. But for those of you who may be intimidated by that and or by the syntax of LODs, this is something that can really allow you to approach it in a more kind of just easy and intuitive manner. Oops, I actually did not mean to click next there. But yeah, so now Tableau will automatically automatically aggregate that measure and give you that quick LOD. So really, really cool thing to make LODs a little bit easier. Now, for my fellow map nerds out there, I'm a huge geospatial analytics guy. I actually studied geography and GIS in college. A couple new updates to our geospatial technology and capabilities here. First, the ability to connect to KMZ files. So those are kind of like KML files, which we already have support for, but they're the zipped versions thereof, right? So now you don't have to unzip your KML file. And KML files are really common. For like Google Earth, I know that Google Earth in particular is how they export the data. So if you're working out of a tool like that, exporting KMZ files, now you don't have to unzip it before connecting to it in Tableau. And then one of the really popular data warehouses out there, as we expand our geospatial support for geospatial database hosts or geospatial data hosted in databases, we already have Microsoft SQL Server, Pivotal Greenplum, and quite a few others. We also have added Snowflake to that portfolio as well. So if you have your spatial data living up in Snowflake, now we can connect. We can just bring it in via the standard connector, and then you can perform your geospatial analysis without having to export that data from Snowflake as into a local shapefile, for example. So if it's if that spatial data is updating in any way, Tableau will be able to just pull those changes straight down from the database instead of having to re-export and update that shapefile or however you're doing it. So, and another thing, I don't know if y'all have been watching this GIF here, but I literally just learned this. If you uncheck aggregate measures, it'll actually automatically disaggregate your like your spatial data. And this is, I don't think this is a new feature, but this is something I just learned today from this GIF actually. I thought I knew it all, but yeah, instead of having to just add a disambiguator, you can also do it that way. It's pretty cool. So moving on, another new feature of desktop is the in-product extension gallery. So this is, for those of y'all unfamiliar with dashboard extensions, right, little applications that are designed either by us or by third parties or by you even, right? You can design your own custom extensions that kind of just add augment Tableau's capabilities with custom capabilities, right? So before, in order to add or to find extensions, you had to go to the web. You had to Google Tableau extension gallery and pull up the extension gallery in Chrome or whatever your preferred web browser is, and then scroll around and find the one that you want. Well, now we can pull everything in desktop. So you don't have to go to the web to do that. You can add an extension, go to the extension gallery, and it'll be right there in the product without having to leave your flow in order to download and add a new extension. So that is a really nice time saver there. Way more convenient as well. All right, and I think last but not least with desktop is a couple security slash just Azure AD integrations here. So as we kind of improve our ability to work with various Microsoft Azure products, we have added the ability to connect to data via using Azure AD as your authentication method for Azure SQL Database, Azure Data Lake Gen 2, Azure Synapse, and Databricks. Okay, so these are going to be just allow you to use those AD creds and connect that way rather than not being able to do that, right? So another addition there. So we'll go ahead and move to the web now. So Tableau Online /server, we've added quite a few things. The first thing we're going to hit on here is just some new connectors, right? We're continuing to grow the connector list for our online and Tableau server products, right? That is kind of one of the big areas, I think, where our web edit experience lags behind the desktop experience is just pure connectivity, right? We like to say we're at 80 to 90% feature parity, and we're shooting for 100 when it comes to web edit to desktop editing. But I think the biggest gap is just in this connectivity category. And so we've added 4 data sources here to our web edit, to our web editor connectors. And those are Athena, Apache Drill, OData, and SharePoint lists. So those have been kind of widely requested in the community forums, and we've brought them to life here in Tableau Online and Server with 2021.1. So another feature with web edit, continuing with that feature parity theme, the ability to drag and drop headers on the web. You can do this really easily in desktop, but you haven't been able to do it in web edit. So for those of you who prefer to do your editing on the web, or just like the convenience of editing in the web, but often are like, but I can't do the little things that I want to do. Well, we're getting closer, and this is new one. I'm not quite sure why you would drag months out of order like this GIF is showing, but that's besides the point. The point is we can do this in the web now and do kind of custom drag and drop to reorder your dimension members right there in the web edit interface. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Ask Data. So for those of y'all who are using Ask Data in your organization, right, it's our natural language kind of processing feature that connects to your data sources and allows you to ask questions in plain English, right, of your data, and it'll build you a viz. What we've added is a kind of nice little guide / pop-up to Ask Data that just kind of onboards users to it, right? So it'll pop up right when you load up Ask Data, and it'll just kind of tell you, hey, like this is what it does, and here are some like links to how to use it, how to give feedback, et cetera, right? So even though Ask Data is designed to be like extremely intuitive and easy to straightforward to use, we still added a helper here to make it even easier and more approachable and maybe less intimidating. And then another thing we added is just adding the improving the indexability, right? So we have greater control on what fields are indexed within the Ask Data pane, right? So data source owners and admins now have the ability to manually disable value indexing for specific fields if they want to, and it's still fully available. That field would be for analytical questions, but they won't be automatically recognized in the interpretations. So this is just something that allows you greater control, and it also allows you to kind of remove ambiguity and improve performance when you're in Ask Data. All right, So getting out of all of that and just into the more general Tableau server online UI experience. Another great feature that we've added is the unified notification experience, as we call it. So this allows you to manage all of your notifications in the newly redesigned notification center within Tableau Server and Online. This dedicated space shows all of your shares, comments, extracts, and prep flows in one place. So it consolidates all the important information and changes across your organization. You can control where you receive these notifications via preferences directly in Tableau, email notifications, or both. And it'll help you, so that'll help you never miss an important alert, right, that you need to take action on. This feature was actually specifically designed for viewers, right, which is the kind of the most users of Tableau, right, actually technically are users, or the greatest number, or viewers rather, and that'll allow them to use notifications to guide them through the content they need to monitor and expand their experience. So obviously it helps everybody else as well, people who receive notifications from data management or any other sort of notification. So everybody will benefit from this. It just makes it a lot easier to work. So for those of y'all who use metrics, they were released in 2020.2, and they've quickly become a pretty popular feature. It allows you to track basically all of your key data points in one place. That's what metrics do. And what we've done is we've just improved by allowing people to actually see what metrics are created on a specific dashboard. So this is great because, first of all, metrics will already allow you to, instead of having to jump from dashboard to dashboard to get insight on all your key KPIs that you're tracking, you can just create metrics in the dashboard and have them all consolidated in one place. So they just show up as objects in Tableau Server or online, just like a workbook or a data source would within the UI, right? So now we can actually take these metrics, they'll pop up just like kind of data-driven alerts do, where you can see other metrics that have been created by other users on this view. And if it's something you're like, hey, this is actually something that I would like to track too, or get information on, then you can click on it and view it as well. So now we're going to talk licensing just a little bit really quickly. There's a new authorized to run option for servers if you're not offline, activating offline, or if you're not installing Tableau Server in an air-gapped environment. This is just for Tableau Server here, but as long as you're connected to the internet, we have an activation service now, and it'll allow you to. It's also really good for installing on a virtual machine or non-persistent environment. All right, and last but not least, this is a big one. I think a lot of people are really going to be excited about this. Now we have zero downtime licensing. So, before, what we would have to do is, if you're going to change your licenses, maybe you're adding capacity, extending your term, or adding a data management or server management to your deployment, or adding some cores, right? Whatever it is, adding a product key, you would have to restart server. Well, no longer do you need to. With 2020.1, you can keep server running. There might be an hour of lag time for the changes to take effect, but the UI will update immediately, and Tableau Server will not need to be restarted in order for those licensing changes to take effect. All right, I saved the best for last. Now we're going to get into kind of probably the biggest feature of this release, and that is what we call our Einstein discovery in Tableau, right? So as our integration with Salesforce gets tighter and tighter, we're going to bring the best of that product into our product as well. And so that comes with this. That's what this comes with. So there's kind of three components to this. We have a dashboard extension, which allows you to bring in that kind of Einstein module you might be familiar with in Salesforce, in your Salesforce UI. Well, now you can bring that module directly into a Tableau dashboard. So you can see kind of what that looks like here. We also have an extension, an analytics extension, similar to the way that we integrate R and Python, as well as the ability to add it to Tableau Prep. So you can add a prediction directly into your underlying data and run that add that as a step in Tableau Prep. And so adding additional columns with that just give us augmented analytics and taking advantage of Einstein's kind of augmented intelligence and AI layer. So let's dive in a little bit to see what that looks like. So the dashboard extension, like I said, it's going to allow you to leverage kind of Einstein predictions, and it'll actually allow you to kind of ship values back and forth, right? So you can see, like, you make a dashboard selection, and then if we change that, Einstein will kind of query and give you the predictions, give you the leading causes as it sees, and gives you suggestions for how to improve that. Okay, so that's what the extension, how it would like look in a dashboard. And as you can see on these slides, all of these do require access to these features require additional Einstein Discovery licenses for anybody who's going to view predictions. So if this is something you're interested in, feel free to ping your account rep and have a talk about this. But let's get into the table calculation. So anybody who's put R or Python, TabPy, right, into Tableau kind of knows how this works, right? You're able to call to a Python model or an R script from a visualization you've created, and then return that and give you another layer of just analytical richness in your dashboards and directly in your views. Well, now we can do that with Einstein too, in the kind of same, you're actually calling exactly the same functions with the script real, for example, in this, what you see here, right? So this will call to a model prediction that you've created, run it over a visualization you've already created, and return additional values using Einstein's kind of it's AI and machine learning layer. So that's actually it. That's all I got for y'all. Hopefully that was 10 minutes. I'm not sure. Might have been a little longer, might have gone a little over, but I tried to talk fast. So I'll hand it off to the next speaker right now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. If anyone has any questions for Matt, drop them in the chat. You definitely don't need to stay on, Matt, if you need to get back with your day, but we might send over batch questions if we get any. Perfect.
Great. Thank you. Yeah.
So next up, we are going to do a quick trivia game, and I have some Amazon gift cards that I will send out to whoever wins. If we wind up having a couple people in a tie, then we'll just split out the gift cards and do a little bit less for each of you. So let me get this up and running. Classic. I will share my screen. Great, so you guys can plug in kahoot.it, and this is our game pin. And once we have the majority of you guys in the room, we can see that here. I will get us started. And let me know if you're having any trouble getting in. Most of these questions are going to be pretty easy. I didn't want to throw any real curveballs, but we do have a couple of harder ones. So hopefully you guys don't all get all of the right answers.
Speed counts though. So that'll
that does count.
People out.
I was playing a bunch of these games when quarantine first started. I did a really fun one for The Office, the television show, if you watch it. There was one person who was like amazing, and he just got like thousands more points than anyone else, and we all thought that he was a bot, but he turned on his camera and he was not a bot. He was just a real nerd. Is anyone having any trouble getting in? I will give it another 2 minutes for you guys to get in, and then we will get started. I'm going to wait for it to get up to 20. And if you are struggling and need more time, please just throw that in the chat so I know to wait for you. Down to 18. It's not good. Oh, I meant to turn the music on. Okay, we will get started. Question 1, which version of Tableau introduced set actions? Correct answer is 2018.3. These versions always really throw me for a loop. I never know when things happen in which version. Next question. Ooh, Kel is in a very close lead next to Michael and Anna. Where are Tableau headquarters? This should be an easy one. Probably should have set these for a little bit less time, but each of them are set to 30 seconds. So no Googling, please. Seattle is the correct answer.
I wish they were in San Diego.
True or false? You must manually type square brackets when using data source fields and calculated fields. False is the correct answer. Michael is still in the lead, but James has come up to second. If you want to replace one field with another without breaking your worksheet, which of these features should you use? Replace references. I've been doing this a lot this week while I'm working on a data migration project. Michael is still in the lead. Mark is coming up close in second. Which of these is not a current Tableau desktop certification option? And Greg will be talking about certifications right after this. So if none of these mean anything to you, you'll learn a little bit more about them in Greg's presentation. Desktop certified analyst is correct. Last question, and this is for double points. How many Tableau releases have happened since May 2020? 4 is the correct answer. Lexi coming in 3rd. Michael coming in 2nd. And James in 1st. James, you must have won the double points last one. Awesome. So I will be sending out a $50 gift card Amazon for James and $25 for Michael and Lexi. If you guys could all just shoot me a message in the chat with your email address, I will get that sent out to you this evening. Awesome. Thanks, guys. I hope this was fun for you. Cool. And with that, Greg is going to take it away to talk about certifications. Greg, are you there?
I am there. Sorry, my Zoom's not. Caitlin, can you maybe drive while I do this presentation, just so we're not messing with that?
Yes. Let me pull up the deck. I don't, or actually, Mary, do you still have the deck up?
Let me see if I still have the deck up. I think I closed it, but it should be taking much. Grab it real quick.
Sorry, I got a new laptop and I needed to update my Zoom preferences.
Just navigate.
Oh, I think I got it.
Oh, okay. Just
All right. Coming through?
Yeah, you're good.
Yep.
Sweet. Okay, so if for any new folks, welcome. I'm Greg, one of the co-leads for Denver. Live up near Boulder, and I lead teams for revenue operations and using Tableau really as the backbone for that on the BI side. I'm going to talk, we've had a lot of interest around certifications with this group, both in the survey and just folks reaching out directly. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Just anecdotally seeing a lot of traffic around this on Twitter and kind of in the community and DataFam and otherwise. So it seems to be something a lot of folks are interested in. I went ahead and took the associate exam, so I can share that experience, but there's a lot out there in terms of the desktop certifications of folks taking it, a lot of folks that have had different experiences, and then some of the bigger certifications that we'll talk about. So definitely reach out to others and get their experience as well, and utilize a lot of the good content that's out there. We're not going to really be breaking new grounds today on this, but hopefully it gives you some information if you're not super familiar. So we'll jump in. There's really on the desktop side, there's 3 flavors of desktop certification. Beyond this, there's a couple server exams, and if you work for maybe an analytics company, there might be a partner exam that you might be concerned with, but more often than not, you'll typically see these 3, and really mainly the first 2. So these are left to right in order of advanced knowledge. The first being specialist, and then associate, and then professional. And I've got some overview facts there below each of those. Specialist is kind of your entry level certification. So if you're sort of new to the product, it's one you might take a look at. I did see that Tableau is actually offering a combination of e-learning and specialist exam fee combo if you want to go that route. But it is a pretty low barrier to entry. It's $100. There's no prereqs, and if you're pretty new to the product, this won't really take you that long, I think, to get up to speed. I think if you've been in the product a couple months, maybe taking some training, either formalized or just watch some YouTube videos and read help articles, you could probably get to this pretty quickly. And this one doesn't expire. The next one is certified associate. This is kind of your mid-tier, a little more expensive at $250. This one has no prereqs, so if maybe you've been with the product, not certified, and kind of seeking this out, this might be where you want to look to start, just because it does require a little bit more advanced knowledge. I've actually taken both of these. I think specialist, you could kind of go in a little cold and probably do okay. associate, I do think there is, you do want to spend some time certainly preparing for these, and we'll talk about why that is as well. But no prereqs, a little bit longer recommendation in terms of months of experience in the product. And this is one that you do have to renew. So it's a 2-year cert. Specialist and certified associate, both similar in terms of testing. They're both 2-hour tests, multiple choice. We'll talk about that in a minute. Certified professional. This is a little bit of a different one. This is a 3-hour exam that's graded by committee. So it's more expensive. This is going to be, you're more of a subject matter expert in the product. Both in terms of the technical aspects and how to apply it in best practices. Best practices sort of come across on all of these, but this one actually requires you to build out some content, and that's evaluated as well. And this is a 3-year certification that you have to renew. That's an overview. And then really, I think the question that you might ask or want to ask is like, all right, is that even worth it? And like most things, I would say it depends. But at the end of the day, yes, it really depends on what your expectations are. It's going to depend on different companies are going to view this differently. Different individuals within a company are going to view this differently. But overall, I think I would advise that it's a really good component of a broader training plan. I think this forces you to maybe look at some of the areas and technical features or things you don't often use in your business case and become a little bit more well-rounded and well-versed. But I would certainly advocate, and if you've ever been around me and talked Tableau, I would make this, seek out opportunities like the community initiatives, Maker for Monday, Workout Wednesday. I think those are really, really strong in terms of development and then allow you to build up a portfolio. So if you're looking in terms of, you're looking for a new career or to kind of break in, I think maybe both of these, some people will view positively. Some people are not going to know what it is, but by participating in some of those other things or doing some of the work on your own, you're able to build out that portfolio as well, which personally I view strongly. It's very easy to see that work, but depending again on who you talk to, some of these things are going to be really valuable, but I think at the end of the day, it's definitely valuable. All right. So preparing, we touched on what the recommendation is for time and product. Those are rough guidelines. Tableau does put together a really nice guide for the different topics that will be tested and then provide some weighting for each of those topics. So you can kind of focus your study on those areas that are weighted more heavily. This is more targeted towards the specialist and the associate exam, but I think in all cases, it's going to be both conceptual and hands-on questions. So you might have to actually build out a worksheet. For associate and below, you don't actually have to build out a actual dashboard. You might be provided with the dashboard and have to answer questions related to it. But typically, you're talking about just building sheets to answer some of the more practical hands-on questions. I would definitely, we're not going to get into these are some example questions that I saw on a test or things like that, which is frowned upon. But certainly the guide is reflective, I think, of those things. But I think the things that are going to come up frequently and are really emphasized are the core concepts that really show that you understand how Tableau works at a foundational level. So things like the order of operations is big, discrete versus continuous, green and blue, dimension versus measure. You really need to have a good handle on how those things work, which I think is only going to benefit you in the long run anyway. But these things come up often and can also be tricky in terms of both the questions and then the answers that you might be able to pick. If you don't have a good handle on these, you might trip up. Like anyone, you're going to use Tableau in different ways, maybe use it at work and you're using certain features more often than not. I think this is pretty well-rounded, but there are going to be areas that I think just by that nature, you're not going to be as familiar with. So definitely spend time focusing on those. If you don't use maps a lot, maps come up a lot on the exam. The analytics tab, be really familiar with that. I would say things like box plots and forecasting and some of those more analytical features, not just the visualization side. Those are topics that frequently come up. Some basic statistics on what those values might mean, things like R squared and p values. Layouts, your actions set in groups, and then most people have, tend to lean one way or another in terms of level of detail and table calcs. So you might be stronger in one than the other, but these are, again, kind of core concepts that you just might not use, but prepping for these tests are going to maybe help you out in that regard. Definitely check out, whenever you do go to take the test, what version is being tested. So as of right now, it's 2020.1. The big thing to note there is, in terms of later releases, 2020.2 is where relationships are released. So that will not be something tested, but it does also mean you might be tested on joins and blends, and that might be information that you haven't really even thought of since relationships were released a while ago. But it is something that you might need to be familiar with. And then the big one here, and why I advise not winging it, is that if you unfortunately do not do well, you don't get a second chance. You have to pay for it. So I would go in prepared, even if your work sponsoring it. They're probably not going to look kindly on you submitting 2 expense reports because you failed the first exam. So just keep that in mind. And on exam day, so a little bit different than most exams, at least that I've taken. So this is going to be a video proctored exam. It's done by a third party. So you'll have somebody kind of looking at you on the screen while you're taking the exam. They make sure that nobody's in the room, that you don't have any notes. And then it's also on a virtual desktop. So this is important because, especially if you're on a Mac, some of your keyboard shortcuts won't work. So be prepared if you rely on things like the command key to select multiple pills, things like that, you might not be able to do it. So just kind of keep that in mind. Check your system requirements before you go in, and make sure you're not going to be disturbed for the 2 or 3 hours that you do it. My 4-year-old actually walked into the room during my test. Proctor didn't really appreciate it, so just do yourself a favor there. You can use Google. You can use the internet. So anything that's publicly available, you'll have access to all of the Tableau help files, which typically is where you're going to find your answers. And you can do word finds for kind of those keywords, tricky phrases that you might see in an answer or a question within those help articles, and you'll have access to all of that information. You will not be able to rely on Excel. So you might have Excel as a source, but you're not going to be able to find your answers by diving in Excel and trying to do it that way. You really have to do it in Tableau. Time management. So we've probably all taken a standardized test at some point in our lives, and this might just need to be things you need to refresh yourself on. But I think where you might get tripped up is if you're trying to learn on the exam and like actually read these help articles. Or if you're just struggling with a particular question, you need to move on and come back to it and pick off the things that you can get to and circle back as needed. I'll get your guy over there on the left. You don't want to be this guy. So for the 2-hour exam, it's about 3 minutes a question, which is doable, but some of these questions will maybe take a little bit more time or are not going to be super obvious, or you might have to do some complex things. So you got some variability around that. Definitely read the questions and answers carefully. There are some details that if you overlook, you're going to trip up. They definitely throw in answers that will appear correct if you do it the wrong way. They're aware of the wrong ways to do things. So, but definitely there are some wording that I found a little bit gray. So it's not always going to be cut and dry. So just be aware of that. Understand the contours of your data. So if you're being asked to do a join, definitely do kind of a dummy check around duplicate rows and things like that. And then just kind of a tip that I found useful, staying in the same workbook, label your sheets with like question numbers, make use of captions. If you're not using captions or familiar with that for kind of documenting some of your work already, kind of get familiar with that. It's maybe a good use of tool if you need to take notes on a particular question, either circle back to it or what have you. Just kind of a good tip there. And I believe that is it. So if you have questions on this, I think we're a little bit over time. Definitely reach out, use your network. Again, there's a bunch of stuff out here on this. I think it's definitely a good use of time, especially if you're early on. It's kind of a good marker that you have a kind of a known level of technical knowledge around Tableau that's going to be viewed well. And then I think more than anything is just a professional development. It shows that you have initiative around that and you're growing in that way. So overall, good experience. Talk to me if you have questions.
Thanks, Greg. So we have about 10 minutes left. If anyone wants to stay on for networking after 10 minutes, I'm happy to make you a host. The tug leaders will not be able to stay on late today, so we can definitely make someone else a host. And if you guys would like to do breakout rooms for smaller group networking, I can set those up now. Or if you just like to come off of mute or video and introduce yourself and talk amongst yourselves, that works as well.